Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video where today we return with round 9 of the F1 1999 career mode. Yes, we're back this weekend here for not only my home Grand Prix, but also the Jordan home Grand Prix as well, of course. Basically, through all of its guises, Jordan is now effectively Aston Martin in 2024, so Silverstone is really the home Grand Prix of the Jordan team. The factory is literally on the outskirts of the circuit, so this weekend we are hoping for a big result. Of course, if you missed out on the last video in Austria, I would highly recommend going back and checking it out. Eddie Irvine with a 24-point lead at the top of the table, ahead of Mika Hakkinen at the moment, but 3 points covering from second down to fourth. We're in a bit of a lonely P5 at the moment. I'm hoping we get a couple of good races under our belt to try and get back towards that championship fight with the big boys, but we are comfortably best of the rest. Well, here we are then back at the home of Formula 1 and the home of British Motorsport. Unfortunately, obviously remembered this weekend to take that 5-place grid drop before we go into qualifying, because I do not want to see a gearbox issue here in our one run. So hopefully we can try and get a good lap on the board. Again, though, kind of didn't realise just how many power-sensitive circuits we've got lined up over the next few races, and well, Silverstone is certainly another one of those. The only real break we get is going to be the Hungaroring next weekend, if I remember correctly. But yeah, this will be a big weekend, of course, for McLaren. Haven't been able to take a win away from Ferrari so far since the reset, but have been pretty quick over one lap pace. Of course, Coulthard gaining that pole position last weekend in the Styrian Mountains, and of course his home GP as well this weekend. And although I must admit, it would be really nice to race on the old version of Silverstone for this series, I do really enjoy these classic cars on the modern layout, where it is so fast and so high commitment. It is actually very, very good fun in these cars. Of course, you've got no traction control, and you don't have much downforce as well. So it does really mean you are hanging on for dear life through some of the corners as well, as we make our way down in towards the final few corners there. A little bit of a moment, but we keep it pointing in the right direction. They're struggling with a little bit of front locking through the final chicane. Hakkinen, though, looks like he's just going to snatch the pole away from his teammate as we run a little bit wide through the final corner, but it is P5. Well, I was staggered that we were P5 at the end of the lap based on how far behind Mika Hakkinen we were, but a 1.4 second gap between the McLarens and Ferraris and the rest of the field there. We do snooker away, though, that P5 spot from both of the Stewarts, who I think are going to be very, very strong come race day Sunday. But, obviously, with our 5-place grid drop, we're going to be down in P10, so tucked in with the Benettons and the Sauber cars early on. It feels like the field spread is getting much, much larger at this stage of this series.
Welcome along then to Great Britain and the Great Silverstone circuit for today's Grand Prix. The 3.6 miles of the Silverstone circuit in Great Britain is hallowed ground to the Formula 1 faithful. We have 18 corners that wrap around this former World War II airbase and some good passing opportunities at the end of the DRS zones. Anthony Davidson is alongside me as usual for the race today. Now, can I talk to you about Sebastian Vettel? That was a great win in the last race. Can they keep that momentum going this weekend?
It's always nice to come into a Grand Prix weekend on a high, but your expectations are based much more on your practice and qualifying runs. So it's the momentum from those sessions that they'll be hoping to carry into the race today.
Okay, I know it's your home Grand Prix, but treat it like any other race. Don't take unnecessary risks.
Jeff, old Jeff just does not get it, does he? We've got to take risks. It's Silverstone. We want to get a big result this weekend, and hopefully that's exactly what we'll do. 26 laps ahead of us here. As always, we're going to try and adopt a one-stop strategy. The tyres, they last pretty well inside this game, but lining up P9 then on the grid thanks to Frenson's penalty. It is 5 red lights. That's the lights out, and away we go. They're actually doing pretty well off the launch for once in this series. Not even going to lose a place as we head down in towards turn 1. As Wirtz and Villeneuve almost come together. And, well, I'm a little bit of a chicken on this game. I don't trust the AI very much at all anymore in this series. So we back out of that one, and Frenson clearly less fearful than I. As John Lacey tries to make a move there work as well. Jos Verstappen in the BAR up into P13 as well, so he's had a pretty decent getaway in one of the back market cars. But as we make our way down the Wellington Straight, then on lap 1, I can see a Ferrari and a McLaren side by side up in front. I think Coulthard's muscled his way to P2, so McLaren now 1 and 2 early on in this Grand Prix there, and that is the dream start to this race then. Clearly, I think they have bought some upgrades this weekend, have the McLaren team as well, so that is fantastic, as you can already see Mika Häkkinen sailing off into the distance, or I believe it's Mika anyway, on this opening lap of the GP there, as we run ever so slightly wide through Maggotts and Beckett's there. I can see Ralph getting his elbows out with those 2 Stewart cars as well, a little bit further up the road, but this has been a very, very dramatic start to the Grand Prix, but we are all here for it at the moment, as everyone then snaking around. You can see Alex Wirtz trying to make a move. They're 3 wide momentarily as we make our way down the back straight. We're still struggling just a little bit with that rear locking, but we get a nice run down in towards the final couple of corners. Frenson, though, will say no thank you, and we'll cover off the inside. And after a pretty chaotic lap 1, Häkkinen still leads the way at the front of the field, and staggeringly, no one is out of this Grand Prix, which is rather impressive in this series, it must be said. Frenson looks slow through turn 1. Oh, we'll try and cover me off. And we'll go through there, a little bit of banging with the Williams. That kind of had to make the move happen. And back up then into P10. I've noticed as well, we seem to be one of very few cars on a set of the soft compound tyre here. So we've got to be able to capitalise early. We got yellows out. Someone potentially has got issues up in front. And that is, I think, Mika Häkkinen. Immediately out of the Grand Prix. What on earth has happened to Mika? And on just lap 3, McLaren, their hopes and dreams of a 1-2 finish here have immediately gone up in smoke. And unfortunately for them, that is literally Mika Häkkinen out of the British Grand Prix as we roll into the 3rd lap of the GP. That McLaren is disastrously unreliable. I noticed some of you as well have been asking about the liveries on some of the cars. Unfortunately, I had to actually lower the graphics on them to actually make sure I could finish races, as we'll try and suddenly have a look then on one of the Stewarts. But yeah, it has been patched in the new version of this mod. So obviously when we move over to that, we will be able to run all the really high detail liveries again. But yeah, Johnny Herbert as well, it must be said, that Sauber car, absolutely having a day out of it at the moment then. But what I'm really noticing more and more is actually the different handling characteristics of different cars, as I say that about Herbert. And immediately that was the commentator's curse, as Jacques Villeneuve will immediately move back up and into P6. But yeah, that Williams is an absolute rocket in a straight line. Has nothing through the corners. The Stewart behind us is basically the exact opposite. And then our Jordan car kind of fits in nicely the middle ground here. The same could probably be said for that Stewart that is now apparently suffering from chronic understeer. As we watch Herbert making his way through Maggotts and Beckett's. Can we go the long way around? No, in a word there. We got way offline as we got more yellow flags out. Are we about to lose another one from this GP? I don't think so. Come on then, let's try and send it on Johnny. Down into his final corner. That was brave. Keep it between the white lines though. I've really got no confidence on this car on the brakes at the moment. But we will complete the move. And Mark loving it as well. But yeah, Jacques Villeneuve just simply does not have the responsiveness in that Williams. As we make our way through Maggotts and Beckett's, and as we head to the outside, as we make our way down the back straight, are we going to be able to pull off a move? We're going to try and go the long way around him. And Jacques Villeneuve then has absolutely been mugged off there. Up into P6 we go even. Alex Wirtz still in my coveted P5 position. As Schumacher already 7 seconds up the road. Ralph is flying. Oh, Verts. Oh, Verts, come on, man. Keep it in a straight line, sir. Well held. But we will say thank you very much, and then back up into P5 we go. My very coveted P5 position so far this season, but there's an opportunity to try and run better. I'm certainly going to try and take it here. Ralf Schumacher, the gap's staying pretty level between us and our teammate, but he has really just escaped the midfield today. Well, I think the problem that we're very, very quickly realising in this series right now is that Jordan, a bit like they were in real life on a lot of occasions, we're kind of better than the rest of the midfield runners, but not as good as the top teams. So Ferrari and McLaren can absolutely still romp away from us. But as you can quite clearly see by the gap we've already pulled out over Alex Verts, that is about to evaporate if I'm going to keep driving like that, we can't really get close to McLaren and Ferrari unless we have a big push of performance. But yeah, suddenly that's made my day a lot more difficult trying to close in on Ralf, because we basically need half a second a lap, more than that. There we go, Eddie Irvine, first one to blink then in this race. So just like we saw in Austria, Irvine potentially pitting a little bit earlier than the rest of us. We're trying to take the tyres to at least the end of lap 11. But yeah, Irvine clearly chews through his rubber, apparently. Well, despite the fact Irvine's pit, we've literally come out about a second in front of him then. That's still the advantage that Ferrari and McLaren have here, because that's got to be one of the biggest drifts I've ever done on this game. There we go, Ralf and Michael both into the pit lane. And I can only assume that DC has followed him in as well. So we might... Actually, I don't think we'll be in the lead of this Grand Prix. It kind of depends how close Irvine has been able to stick to David Coulthard. But not just going to let him by. I mean, he will fly past me down a front straight somewhere. But are we going to be out ahead of Coulthard? Are we going to be out ahead of Schumacher? No, we are not, as I think Schumacher might actually have got the jump on Irvine as well. So it's through the high downforce corners we've got the speed and the grip to keep up with those McLarens and the Ferraris looking on the Delta. It is just all the raw horsepower, of course, that those factory teams have when you're going down the straight series. I mean, yeah, Michael Schumacher now, that gap just coming down and down and down, and he's through. From like half a second back. Remember, of course, there was no DRS or anything like this back then. It's actually Schumacher. Okay. Wants to get the elbows out. I will return. What was that? I'm literally on his inside. And Michael Schumacher just refuses to back out. And both Ferraris? No, Irvine is still running. But Schumacher is out of the Grand Prix. And we've now got a VSC. I'm sure Irvine then is immediately going to be trying to jump past me here down through the old turn 1. But yeah, I mean, Michael Schumacher, you cannot expect to barge me off the road and then into the very next corner just expect me not to try and fight it with you. And especially when I'm down the inside, where on earth are you aiming for an apex? I'm staggered, genuinely, that our car is not out of this Grand Prix from that incident. But yeah, we're obviously going to have to dive into the pit lane at the end of this lap. So I think Alesi and Fisichella are going quite long on their mediums. But this now is going to mean that someone that isn't a Ferrari or McLaren is going to get a podium here. And I can't help but feel that person is going to be our teammate Ralf Schumacher. And so it's such a difficult pit lane to try and get slowed down for. That time round, I was way too cautious. Apparently as well, the car only doing 34. 33, come on, we need 37 miles an hour out of you. Why aren't we going fast enough? This better not cost me more time. As Schumacher, yep, making his way through the final couple of corners. Alesi has peeled into the pit lane. But a new front wing as well, having to go on. Thanks to that contact with the Michael. I do love the way the front wings slot down on this mod as well. But yeah, we're not going to be out much ahead of Alesi or Giancarlo Fisichella here, as Rossit now up to P4. Ricardo Rossit having his day of days once more. Frentzen will move past me, so will Verts and Villeneuve. So we've got a lot of work to do towards the end.
Let's get some heat into those tires.
Yeah, I think if we can recover to a P4 finish, we quite rightly should be pretty happy with that. There's even Jan Magnussen getting round me. So we have lost a lot. Oh, we got yellows. We got yellows. Someone behind me, perhaps? That might be... I don't know who it is. Let's go take a look. Well, running on board then, it is actually Rubens Barrichello in the Stewart behind me then, I think. Oh no, he's actually had contact. Oh, I thought he'd had a mechanical failure, but no, he's collided with one of the Benettons then as they make their way through. That's Giancarlo Fisichella on the inside. And while Rubens Barrichello now finally getting payback for what he did in the Castellet. Oh, we want to try and make Stewart's day even worse then. Of course, probably still our biggest rivals this campaign. Down the inside will go of Jan Magnussen, who clearly really doesn't want to put up much of a fight. Mika Salo and I assume Rosset are both going to be diving into the pit lane at the end of this lap as well. So we're going to be back up then into P7. I want to try and get P4 here. I feel like we still should be able to. But yeah, the likes of Wirtz and Villeneuve a long way up the road, as Rosset yet to pit. Well, I think Shinji Nakano is making himself some enemies at the moment. Well, I think Ricardo Rosset is making himself some enemies at the moment. Jacques Villeneuve has finally found a way around the BAR. But yeah, Alex Wirtz now desperate to try and find a way through, and it's really meant that we've closed in quite a lot of time over the last couple of laps. Here goes Wirtz then around the outside of Rosset, who surely has got to peel into the pit lane at some point in the very near future. So we'll try and make it through as Willie. Is he in? Yes, he is. I was slightly reluctant then to go back to the racing line there, as I thought he might still be on my outside. Can barely hear anyone else's V10 over the sound of our own. But what a glorious sound it is. Yeah, Jacques Villeneuve then right there in that coveted P5 spot. Are we going to be able to try and look around the outside of Alex Wirtz? Yes, we are. That is one of the corners where the AI are very untraditionally slow. As Frentzen then, the man separating us from P4. The amount of grit we've got through there over Villeneuve, it is just disgusting. Imagine that Williams power unit, or engine, sorry, I should say, back in the day, in the back of this car. We would have a really decent little competitor here. Maybe Jordan and Williams need to have a merger, but you can see down the straight, though, unless we're tucked up in the slipstream, we are not gaining anything on Jacques, and neither are we getting any space either, apparently, there. Villeneuve desperate to try and slam the door. Gets a little bit of a wobble. We'll switch to the inside, though, down in towards the final few corners. And we are through and back up into P5. Ralf Schumacher, 25 seconds up the road. He has been leagues above the rest of the mid-pack today. But I think what's slightly annoying me then towards the end of this race is, first of all, we seem to actually now be going quicker than both Frentzen and Ralf Schumacher. And second of all, where have I suddenly found this pace towards the end of the afternoon? As we'll try and have a look down the inside of the Williams to make our way down the back straight. Thank you very much. Like, Prost and Mansell? Or, no, sorry, Ricciardo, Patrese and Mansell, wasn't it? Back in the 80s, or Hamilton and Heikki Kovalainen back in 2008. But with just a handful of laps to go then, we are now back up into P4. So Jordan, we're going to be on for a pretty good payday here. Be nice to see Ralph on the podium, but I really wish it was me instead. Irvine as well, towards the end of this, he's just setting fastest lap after fastest lap here. I've got no idea what the gap is between him and Coulthard, but surely he's not going to do a repeat of Austria and snooker away the win with like 2 laps remaining. Well, I reckon the team told Ralph what I said, because over the last few laps he seems to have got much quicker again, and the gap has pretty much stayed even, somewhere around sort of 24, 25 seconds, but yeah, with Schumacher and Mika Hakkinen gone from this Grand Prix, it has meant that your top 4 are pretty spread out by the end of this one, and Williams as well are going to have a pretty decent points haul, but once again unable to oust those Jordans from best of the rest here. But it is going to be David Coulthard who takes McLaren's first win of the year at the team and his home Grand Prix there, so I'm sure DC, a very happy man this weekend. Eddie Irvine pushed him hard towards the end of the Grand Prix, but it won't quite be enough for Ferrari to make it 4 wins out of 4 races to kickstart this season. Then Ralf Schumacher is going to come home for a very well-earned podium as well, but yeah, a minute behind Eddie Irvine. For us, probably the race we've been closest to being lapped, I think, in terms of raw pace, to be completely honest. McLaren and Ferrari have been just leagues above throughout all of this weekend. I'm expecting similar kind of pace at Belgium and Monza in a few races' time as well. But Hungary next weekend, we keep our eyes forward. That might be one where we've got a real shot to try and mix it up with the big boys. But making our way through the final couple of corners, it is going to be our best result of the season so far with a P4 finish here. But honestly, we probably should have been 3rd.
Well, they've done a brilliant job, I must say, under some intense pressure to take a well-earned victory here at the British Grand Prix. So, Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
I think that smart tyre management on track and very smooth driving definitely assisted in their victory today. That combination meant they got the absolute maximum out of their tyres at all times.
And I can see the drivers starting to approach the podium for the victory celebrations. A real team victory today. Everybody played their part. Congratulations then to Mercedes, your race winners today.
Well, there we are then, the end of the British Grand Prix, and it is David Coulthard who takes the win. Admittedly, I had no idea how close that was coming to the checkered flag there. 1/10 of a second over Eddie Irvine in the end, with Ralf Schumacher picking up P3 there. Both Jordans followed home by both Williams there. Jan Magnussen in the sole surviving Stewart ahead of both Benettons and then both Sauber cars, with Ricardo Rossi, Pedro De La Rosa, Shinji Nakano, Mika Salo, and Jos Verstappen rounding out your finishes there. You can see Marc Genet, Rubens Barrichello, Michael Schumacher, and Mika Hakkinen all failing to see the checkered flag. But that means taking a look at the Drivers' Championship, Ralf Schumacher actually is becoming a bit of a threat towards myself here at the moment. And with another DNF for Michael, we are now in a Schumacher sandwich, but there is only 5 points between us and the Ferrari man there. Irvine now with a 20-point lead over David Coulthard at the top of the table, who now has a bit of a buffer from his teammate Mika Hakkinen as well there. And yeah, now with both Jordans 5th and 6th, we are into a pretty deadlocked P3 in the drivers' table. 18 points between McLaren and Ferrari as well, so I think that is going to be a battle that rages on right the way towards the end of the season as well. But yeah, of course, it only takes one race for this championship to really turn on its head at the moment, and I feel like we could be in for another barnstormer between McLaren and Ferrari. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed, please do make sure to leave a like, get yourself subscribed, and we will return very soon when Formula 1 returns ready for the Hungarian Grand Prix.